to trap us into imagining that that's the only form of security that exists. And I'm happy that the person who spoke earlier talked about securitization. What that means in some sense is that you now make economic, political, and social problem a security issue. And it's known in the literature, once you do that, you then empower the state to do whatever they want to do. So in that lecture in Kefi, I actually titled it Security Panic, actually tweaking for those of us who also have, the literature around moral panic. I call it Security Panic and the lure of police state, not state police, the lure of police state. And I think that's what we are going on. We have been, effectively mobilized around the banditry, kidnapping as the only source, so that we do not discuss the more fundamental cause of insecurity, which is terrible governance that we have. It's the terrible governor that is unable to address the basic needs and aspirations of citizens that has led to the kind of insecurity we have had. The chairman of that, lecture 2 days ago was talking, about the 60s, 70s, we didn't have insecurity. So I now reminded him we're about peers. Nuhu Yakub, the former vice chancellor. I said, Nuhu, do you remember the time you were talking that we could travel and we will not fear in the night? I said, do you know how the average person was valued, the average citizen? I said, we all went to universities. On Monday, I put 5 of my clothes on my bed, and then Tuesday is already, washed, ironed, and it's back on my bed. My bed was made every day with white lining. I have a bed. I have a round table in the middle, which serves as this. I have a wardrobe that was built into the wall, not brought out. And each time I tell my student, sometimes I get afraid to let them not stone me. And because the chorus say, oh, that was in America. I say it's not in America, it was Nigerian University. It was at University of Ibadan in the 70s, in the early 70s. As at that time, that university student, ABU, was actually more notorious about that. You couldn't go to town as a university student and be eating groundnut and be throwing in your mouth. The Department of Mass Communication or English department, they have this, is it bugging, they call it now? Those who describe you, who went to wherever in town and bought groundnut and threw it to your, like a monkey. That was how well Nigerian students were respected, and that's why also they have confidence that they could not do, in quote, bad things that students do today. So we need to go back to what is the socio-economic political condition that has given rise to what we're dealing with. Because I think the state police is an avoidance, and given those who should do something about governance the authority not to do anything. So I think when we're talking about security and insecurity, we need to have this broad conception of it going beyond that. Then, even here, I've seen issues about the police. And I think very often we confuse the concept of policing and police. They are interrelated, intertwined, but not at the same thing. And I think in Nigeria, that confusion, again, is very pervasive in the discussion about police state police. So I've had state police and state policing. They are two different things. What is policing? Policing is all deliberate mechanisms that are put in place to ensure conformity and avoid deviance. Just simply, if we put it that way, the actually most important, I started my career now on the lighter mood. I have one of the, very good education in the best university that is possible, not just in Nigeria, anywhere. I was taught sociology at Ibadan. And we know that the most important policing agency is the family. By the time you graduate from the family, you already made 80%. You don't steal, not because you think you'll be arrested by the police, but you think your father told you, your mother said, don't steal. And once you thought you were out of that, you were taken to church and mosque that reinforced it. You then went to school where they don't only reinforce this, they ask you to respect authority. Where are these institutions today? Mm-hmm. The family, the mosque, the church, and education. Destroyed, isn't it? True. The family, the father is hammering public money and bringing it to ensure the pleasure of a spoiled rat at home who goes around in Abuja, or under the uncompleted bridges, riding recklessly. I mean, are you talking about police? How can police solve this problem? How can police reconstruct your family? How can your family, police strengthen your family? How can the police be the one that will police this kind of loss of institution in the university or at the other level? So I think policing must be understood as this. And in our own case in Nigeria, Nigeria has one of the most decentralized policing in the world. The most decentralized policing in the world. You have your dog, you have all your hinges, because the state is no longer policing your security. So you first start as self-policing. Then you move there to community, street policing, where you have street association of residents and what have you. If you were poor like me, if you were rich like Jaye, you have the gated community policing.
Because he lives in an estate.
Yes, because so you can see the whole thing, and where you can't do that and it's a village, you set up vigilante. Mm-hmm. So just see the apparatuses of policing all over this. And we're sitting talking about, is it decentralized policing or decentralized police? Police and the state. We're still talking, the state already has, a range of policing. It's just that they have chosen which policing to do and not to do. Until recently, who stopped state not having park police? Nobody stopped them to guard the forest. Nobody stopped them. It is now they are suddenly discovering that they could do that. So there are many spaces that could be policed, and that some of them are being policed. If he gives them money, they police effectively. If you live in Lagos, one of the two strictest, policing space is waste management and traffic. Traffic for public good, waste management because the contractors are also the one who determine who becomes governor of Lagos. Ambode Island couldn't get a second term because waste management contractors were very angry with him. So we're very angry with him. So we already have traffic police, we already have waste management police, we already have sanitation police and all those things. It's just they are not called police. And so what is the attraction with this police we are talking? It's not the regulatory power. It's not police power. It's the power to bear arm, power to detain, and to construct cell, and to put you in your cell, and make sure you are not out. That's what is attractive to the governors, that they be talking about state police, state police, state police. So, like I said, we can't stop the train. It's already gone. But I'm just bringing this out so that our contribution to framework, as Otik said, we can at least put this one forward as possible and be more creative. I'm not sure. I'm happy this is taking place, and I think if we really want to be this thing, is to be very careful about how we build this space, because some of them may not look federal. Some of the solutions may not look federal. They may not look, may not look structural in copycat sense, but there may be what our context, our history, our experience will require. Then, of course, we move on to police now. And it's already been alluded that until 1966, we did have, actually, again, back to the beginning. In the southwest, AIT, I'm not policing your microphone. In the southwest and in the north, I think we remember our O-level history. The notion of indirect rule was relatively successful because there were a number of centralized authority. In the north, they were more decentralized societies, which without a central authority. Many of the, if I hear some of the people today call themselves majesty, I just laugh. They didn't exist before colonial authority. I don't know where they became majesty. The Okidoma, Tortif, Ohinoyi of Igbira. These guys didn't exist before colonialism. In fact, that is why if you have an Igbira man, Ohinoyi means leader. And that's why, you know, they didn't want anybody to say there's an attack of Igbira land. So these were colonial creations. So even when there were no central authority, they succeeded in creating those kind of central authority. And around them, local police were created. For those that already existed, some of their staff that performed those semblance of policing duties, not police duty, were already there, and they, in a way, you know, the lack of success in the eastern part of the country, even after creating the warrant chiefs, we all know about. So the police, from 1861, when it was created, that's when we had the first police, colonial police. Till 1966, we actually have what you might call dual or multiplex police system, but that is the history. They didn't want, they knew they couldn't cover the space, but in terms of resources to respond to citizens in distress, you know, more powerful to. I served on a committee to 2006, the Madami committee, and what we reported was change your budgeting process. I think police, to a large extent, you were in the, at least you saw the what. They have what they call one-line budget, which is very helpful for Nigerian government. When an agency enjoy one-line budget, it means you can take the money and take to the quarter and put it in your pocket, because it's not broken down to items. And I said, look, let's do otherwise. If you start your budgeting from division, which is your operational unit, what is an average division require? How many vehicles? It will not be the same. They budget at it. You bring it to your, state. They add this together. The oversight and the, administrative function of the head state command is added. Then the state, the entire thing is added for the country that way. So if you approach the National Assembly and say, I want 100 billion for petrol, they will not cut it to 20, knowing fully well if you do that, you will not be able to, fuel your vehicle. But if you say 100 billion, you say, oh, IG, you are a thief. What are you going to do with that? So we said, but when you do it, the disbursement can go even from central bank directly to that command. That except for overhead that is related to coordination and the rest of it, nothing should go to the force headquarters. If you see the white paper, you will see the report in that. So when we now look at the police itself, there is problem of devolution, not necessarily decentralization in this challenge. Then if you go to personnel, I'm sure people think, I see people quote 400,000. Police actually have less than 260, according to 2022 annual report of the police, 260 personnel. But let me also warn, I always hear this, oh, the UN said ratio 1 to 400. Only poor African country quote that. I've not seen reference for it. I've spent over 4 decades looking for reference to that so-called standard. I've not seen it. In any case, over this period, even if there was, it would have been some 6 decades old, because I started reading that from my undergraduate days, which is 5 decades now. So it meant that technology have changed policing, that you do not need the same ratio of men to population anymore. So it's very low, but I think the problem is deployment. This lack of technology and the lack of competencies and lack of infrastructure in society to support policing. So when we talk about police, I think we need also to say, what are the reasons we are dissatisfied with the police? And I think literatures all over the place, almost over 100 years collecting, had shown that we are not happy with the police, first, because we think they are inefficient. We also are not happy because we think there is impunity around their misconduct. We're also not happy because in relation with us, we think they are uncivil. So there are a number of things we are unhappy with. Why is that the case? Will state police solve those problems that we are dissatisfied with the police today? In what way, except that they have power? You know, the power is the thing that actually makes people more angry with the police because they have certain power. The way you are treated by the police, is it really fundamentally different from the way you are treated by other institutions of government?
No.
It's just the power, the fact that they can detain you. If you go to hospital, you have to beg the nurse. If you go to any ministry, you have to beg the official you are looking. So it's just that those one cannot detain you. And that's the difference. When we started putting military on the road, and people say, I say, look, put Pastor TV there. After 6 months, it will be like any other. But there's nothing inherently bad about it. But they are like a brother. We are the one. So you and I, if we put us in the same condition for 6 months with unlimited power, without adequate resourcing, there will be problem. The difference in discipline that you find is a question of also the way they are organized. I travel a lot between Jos and Abuja. Do you know those military checkpoints? Every day they are served with lunch, cooked food in flask, delivered to them no matter where they are. By the military. They make provision for it. They deliver the food there. You see a healers going around. All along that route, they are divided among the police military formations. They will supply you the food. The police or guard deploy you, doesn't know how you get to that place. He doesn't know how you are going to come back. You only survive by begging, for pure water.
What is there?
From pure. I see people dropping pure water.
Say your boy is there.
Yes, commercial vehicles. The commercial vehicles make it a point of duty. They buy pure water and drop it for them. That's part of the reason also you have differences in conduct. Is that going to be different from the state police? Remember, we are talking of the state. When they say state, I laugh. Which problem you have at the federal that is not in your village? Tell me. In my village, they said they put one pump, and that is in the upper part. And they say we are being marginalized in the southern part because they not know what I was here. No borehole was given to us. Marginalization, even a village of 15 houses. So the same problem you are talking about is, but we'll come to that. So the campaign for decentralization, of course, started since 1999. And it all starts with this idea that the state governors are chief security officers. Of course, there's no provision in the Constitution that says they are chief security officers. It gives them responsibility to ensure the welfare of people in their state. But it didn't give them the terminology of chief security. Even the president himself is not called chief security officer. Our security architecture is not rooted in individual. It's rooted in series of committees and boards and commissions. What is the anger? The anger is in section 215 of the Constitution, which is a reproduction from 1963's Constitution. It's word for word, which says when you give an authority and the police commissioner is not sure, let him clarify with his boss. Is that not what we would do in any ministry? Because we all hooked up with this emotion. The problem is because university is dead. Politicians have become our lecturers.
Reference points.
They become our lecturers. They are the one who tell us, teach us nonsense, and we imbibe it. That is a regular this thing. He said if it's, you have apprehension that it's illegal, clarify from your boss. That's what the governors say, we don't have control. I can tell you, the commissioner of police in Lagos, in Rivers, Akwa Ibom, obey the governor that they obey IG. Don't tell me why. And it's not just one. I mean, repeatedly. IG can't give a commissioner of police 1 million welfare in a month. The guy gets more than 10 months, depending on which of these states, 10 million. Who no say now my pocket I go respect. So we this campaign started not necessarily because of the insecurity. I think the insecurity now provide us with a good reason, which they think is unassailable. You know, as around 2010, when this campaign was very vigorous. There wasn't this level of insecurity. And then the House of Rep actually conducted a survey. And you remember, overwhelming majority said they don't want state police. It was 2010. Said they don't want state police. Now, what are the I think some of the reason for it, the strongest argument for state police is structural. That in every federation, every tier of government create a law and judicial agency to enforce its law. Let's now begin to look at this carefully. I'm going to, sorry I'm taking your time, but I'm going through this because we are civil society. We are going to be invited. I've listened to many civil society people on TV, and I was saying, this guy doesn't know what he's saying about, what he's talking about the constituency which he claims to represent. So you go back and you go to the state where this campaign, and you want to say, okay, we want a state police. Why not local government police? Again, that's why I say I'm very happy. If you live in Philadelphia, you live in Chicago, you live in Los Angeles, you'll be talking about the city police, not the state police. You live in New York, you'll be talking an NYPD, not this New York. I rarely hear of New York State Police. And I'm very happy. And he's giving you a hint. No country, you can't borrow from another country how to organize your police system. So the strongest argument is, and people forget how America developed. America developed by aggregation that is different from Nigeria. It emerged as a it has its own history of conquest. I hope Jason will still be, I see his face. I mean, as probably more worse than the Nigeria. But it also has a liberating way in which the way it aggregated itself, provided with opportunity for negotiation of what will our union be, and try to reinvent itself to be more diverse. American one was a diverse one, which was creating a union. That's why American concept of union is very important. You now want to create a union. So you were able to negotiate what that union will look like. So when you have these two countries, you cannot compare your history and the evolution of your system. And again, it reflects in what, from Nigeria perspective, will be American absurdity. Who is the president of Senate? Vice President. Separation of power. How is it possible to have majority vote and yet not be elected president? Collegiate system. All this came because to protect the smaller states that were joining the union. When we just copy, and our politicians and of course our so-called intelligentsia now, and that's what we do. So for this kind of system, why is it not local? And I think we should raise that. Should the state simply should we have a local government, which is what we have in the First Republic, local government or police, and the state create condition for the oversight, coordinating those local government within its own jurisdiction. That's one, framework, right? Because we're asked to talk about framework. So I promise you I'll give you some of this. Talking about America, first interesting thing, America does not know how many police forces it has. It doesn't even know how, because You can be a sheriff, you can be a village of 15 people and you have your sheriff. So we don't even know what constitutes police, because whether those sheriffs are police, the police function. But what I do know that many criminologists, I don't know what politicians in the US say, is that if the choice were to be made today, it is not likely that America would choose this multiplicity of police if for no reason for coordination problem that it has and the leakages in security concern. And that is why I think 9/11 provided the United States opportunity to begin to tighten the loose knots that had been part of the history of that society by the creating of Homeland Security Department, and to an extent, even the Patriot Act. So again, we must begin to learn. By 1940, Britain had over 100 police forces. Today, we are not too sure whether they have 44 or 43. But in the last 5 years, there's a lot of debate whether, in fact, to regionalize the existing ones and make them fewer police units. In Britain, most decisions, again, we are talking about relation between the federal and the state. Most position about standard, about policy, even annual plan is controlled by Home Office, which is equivalent of Minister of Interior. Or, Home Secretary. So again, we need, I think it was Otive who said we need more evidence in an earlier debate that Clean had on this about 5 years ago in voting wide. So I think we can learn a lot from other countries. So here what Bailey, if you were in police studies, you know Bailey until he died, I think 2 years ago. Once you hear his name, whatever he says is like the Lord said. Bailey, Clip for sharing, these guys, what they say anything about, no matter how absurd it is, for those of us who pretend to be scholars in that area, we just said they have said it, they saw more than we knew. So it's just like Daddy Gio said. So, and what they said is, for example, they said, Bailey, this from Bailey, he said, neither the number of autonomous forces nor the extent of command centralization or decentralization within forces has any effect on human rights and political freedom. Australia, Britain, Canada, India, and the United States are all vibrant democracies, but they vary considerably in the multiplicity of forces as well as the command organization within them. Furthermore, authoritarian policies sometimes have decentralized police systems. For example, Prussia, the Soviet Union, the American South, where civil rights movement, while notable democratic regions have centralized, such as Denmark, Ireland, Sweden, New Zealand, and France. So centralized police force is not an unusual thing in the world. Yes, when you chose to be a federal, there is this argument that you have layers. What is the implication for Nigeria? I start from prison. You know, prison is now on an exclusive list. Why has no state established a prison? Because what makes prison good for them is not yet in existence. Because prison don't arrest and take people there until you get the police. They can't have their people. If you are familiar with Nigerian prison, you will discover that not less than 85 to 90% of the people in prisons violated state laws. Luckily, my friend, National Human Rights Commission is there. You discover that if you really then come out with this, that means if I were federal, I would be too happy to give state police because I will have more money to spend. Yes. So you give up that responsibility for them to enforce their law. What would that mean to the state? Another dimension, before I forget, I need to round up, is in Nigeria, except in an exceptional case, who do you employ in your state civil service? Indigens. So will your state police be will it be only people from that state that will be employed? That violates what the kernel of democratic policing. That it automatically violates. Once you have that, you cannot have democratic policing. It's an antithesis. So you must also change the constitution that people can employ either whatever proportion represents. That means Lagos police, state police, may have 35% non-indigenous or 45%. Otherwise, it becomes non-credible, non-legitimate police. It became a state militia. Because people are not looking at this complexity. They are dealing with emotion. They are dealing with emotion. Your system is not structured very quickly for that employment. In the US, I think it's 12 months. Once you live in a state, within 12 months, you begin to pay your state. Your entitlement comes from the state. You can keep telling your history originally from Orlando. Now, that's a historical thing. So again, you must think about that. I think, again, now, I end with where I ended with my lecture and I said the allure of state police, that's the attraction of state police and the lure of police state. I hope you know the difference. State police is a police established, administered by the state. Police state is a country or a subnational which is under total control of the political elite or the rulers. And I think what we are having is the allure of state police will lead to police state. And I just conclude with this. The argument is they know the place better. Unfortunately, because we don't have statistics, but there was somebody who tried to do, I think it's only Owen, he did some work. About 40% of police in every state, they're actually indigenous at the lower level.
Yes.
And at about 60-something% are from that geographical zone. So which is this one? Because when they say, oh, you bring somebody from Sokoto and put it in Enugu, it's not as that. So let's stop telling lies to ourselves. Let's stop telling lies to ourselves. They have enough people who know the area, that, yes, it is about knowing. But if it's indigenous, it means I can go and become a chief of police in Kogi State, even when I have not lived there for most of my life, because I'm an indigenous of that place. But I won't become a police officer in Plateau. So that's the first thing. And I just want to ask again, the educational, will you say your state has managed its primary and secondary school, no, let's say secondary school, as best as the federal has managed federal government college? At the general hospital in your state, do they run, because I hear all this argument, they'll be more, they'll be more funded. Why won't they fund that education? They don't pay teachers. Why will police be exception? Health workers are not paid. Why would police be exception that they will be better paid? Why is that such attraction? Then, then you move a little bit further. State, who owns the judiciary? Who owns the legislature? In many states, in majority of the states, I know we used to call my own state, we call it this populated by Almajiris, because when they are broke and they want to go home on Friday, they in the morning they will say, oh, let's pray a motion that affect the governor negatively. And then in the evening, the governor calls them and said, take 5 million and talk to your member. Before they close on Friday, they said, we've never had a governor as good as this. We've never had a governor as good as this. So is it judiciary? And even when we are talking about contradictions in judgment, is it not because of the lack of independence of judiciary and those states, that these contradictions are coming up? I just want, will you say that your state independent electoral commission have generated plural results compared to INEC, despite INEC's challenges?
best resource. 100%.
So, again, this exceptionalism of the police, we need to be very careful. And I do hope that attraction that the police will solve insecurity problem, I think is misplaced. My argument has always been police do not create insecurity and they cannot be solution to it. You need to go back to the fundamental. And the solution is framework, sir. Go to chapter 2 of your constitution. It has provided the background for security in Nigeria. We will not have security in Nigeria until you make, chapter 2, you comply with it. Section 10 of the constitution, until all these non-state. I see a state budgeting 53 billion to feed people during this religious Ramadan. In spite of section 10 of the constitution. Thank you.
Thanks for checking out SYMFONI on YouTube. Please be sure to subscribe and like our videos for updates.